my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, February the 20th, and it is a chilly, gray, overcast, wintry day where I am. So all hopes of it being sunshiny and warm and me being able to show off my other new poncho complete fail. We're back into the uberly warm sweater. We're still filming out here. But I did have the heater going on to give it a little bit of a boost, and I have a winter weight crib quilt on my lap, but this should be sufficient so that we can get through recording out here. That's my thought process anyway. So yeah, after those nice couple of weeks where it was all looking like sunshiny and warm, it failed today. So hopefully we'll get warmer coming, right? It's coming. Anyway, I hope that everybody's had a good stitchy week. If you are a new viewer, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. And as always, if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back and catching up on my stitching journey over the past week and see what I've been working on. I'm always grateful for everybody who spends any time with me and watches the videos and comments and all that good stuff. So thanks for coming by. Okay, a couple of things on last week's video, and I will say what usually happens is about 2 hours after I get finished processing the video is usually when I remember things that I forgot to talk about in the video. Anyway, so some of it you're going to see in a bit, some of it I'm going to deal with right now. So a couple of things. One, from the video 2 weeks ago, I think I forgot to mention that Quill Pen had thanked me for empowering her to change her colors for the sampler of stitches, which I'm super excited about. I think that's awesome. I love when people work on a design to make it their own, quite frankly, because I do that a lot myself. So I'm really excited to hear that you've done that, and I hope that you're going to post somewhere so that we can see it, because I'd love to see your choices. I also have these ones where I secretly wish someone changed the whole color palette. You know, when I did mine, I changed my color palette, but I only changed it, you know, the blues were still blues, the greens were still greens. It'd be really interesting to see somebody change like the whole palette and changed it right up, but anyway. I haven't seen one of those yet, but that's okay too. But I'm thrilled that you've taken the opportunity to make the palette your own, and please post somewhere so we can see what it looks like, because that would be great fun too. Also, that I forgot to mention on last week's video, I had totally planned on doing this, is Brenda and the Serial Starter on Flosstube. I think they're putting out a video this week, so the one they did from 2 weeks ago. So the first one they did in February, go watch that video. It's a collaborative video of them. They're at the attic, and they got a whole bunch of the people who were there to come and show what they were working on. And I don't know about you, but for me, that's my favorite thing when you get a bunch of stitchers together, is that everybody's working on something different, and whether they've changed the color palette, which not as many people do as I do, but lots of changes of fabric and what they're doing it on. So it's a longer video, so prepare yourself and just hunker down some evening and watch that, because it was a fantastic video. So Brenda and Laura, thank you so much for doing that. A huge thank you to everyone who was willing to come on camera with them and show their projects, whether they were finished or whether they were whips. It was fantastic. Everybody was fantastic in that video. Everybody's project was awesome. It was fantastic, 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 fantastic. So it's one of the great videos of February 2022. So go watch that one. It was, like I said, it was fantastic. Loved watching it. And I don't remember, I think I also forgot to mention, so Jen Lee of Quirks and Stitches, who's doing the awesome year where she's doing 222 new starts this year to celebrate her 40th birthday. Big long story. You can go back and check on that. She posted a January recap video, which sort of went through everything that she worked on in January, which again, it was an awesome one. She's worked on a bajillion projects, including the new starts and the thoughts behind what she's doing with her new starts, as well as WIP. So it wasn't just new starts. She also worked on other projects she has in her stash. So again, that was a fantastic video. So yeah, those are my two Flosstube video recommendations. Coming to you a little late, so maybe most of you have already seen them, but if you haven't seen them, go check those out because they were fantastic videos and I loved them. 8 thumbs up. Okay, and then Lena, thank you for your comments. So we're going to talk about stretcher bars next week. Charlotte graciously responded and told me what she bought, which was great. So she had ordered a couple of kits from Owl Forest, the Merry Christmas one and the Red Christmas. I see a theme. Probably, you know, has something to do with things that I'm drawn to as well. And she too was going, like, she wished she had known about Joanne Jones's recommendations on how to buy the floss. But we will all remember Joanne's technique for our next orders with Owl Forest Embroidery. So she was grateful for that one as well. But the interesting thing, her comment also said, from the time she ordered, so from Russia to Iowa, 15 days, 15 calendar days. So great turnaround time from them. So that was great. All right. I've got piles on both sides. So let's talk about my stitching this week. And yes, I've got a bag going because I was having so many problems with, you know, things that I forgot about in last week's video that I decided I was going to accumulate them in a bag so that I would remember what I was going to talk about. Okay. So on Sunday, my big toe Choose Joy. You'd seen this, all of the stitching completed last week in a particular version. But I did go ahead and rip out the Dinky Dyes, and I restitched it with the Weeks Dye Works Old Bethlehem. And so that's what it looks like now. The glare on that thing. Yeah, see? A lot. All right. So all I ripped out and restitched was this word joy. So I took it out of the Dinky Dyes Midnight and I restitched with the Weeks Dye Works cotton in Bethlehem, Old Bethlehem. Caution, 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 New Bethlehem is not this color intensive. And in case anybody's wondering, because sometimes, again, this is things that I see pop up, it's like, you know, how does it look if you're combining silks with cottons? So this is an example where this outer blue is a Caron Waterlilies silk, the green is a Dinky Dye silk, the navy blue is a Dinky Dyes, and this is cotton. So if you're looking at my piece, can you tell? So, and again, when I was coming up with my option for this, I didn't care. I care more about color than necessarily what it is, which is why sometimes you find me stitching on linen. It's not my favorite, but if the color is the right thing, then color trumps all. So, so I'm very happy with how this worked out. I think that was the right choice. Yeah, so I'm very happy with that. That was a good choice. The other thing that I wanted to talk about And I probably didn't bring anything with me that was one of the reasons why it worked out so well here and that you get this level of variegation is that, again, Old Bethlehem, even New Bethlehem is still highly variegated. Doesn't look like this. I'm just trying to see if I can't. There we go. And let's do it against this. This isn't going to show up very well. Ooh. I don't know if you can see that at all. One of the reasons why it works out so well, even with those few stitches, is because how little there is between the color changes, right? So you're starting, oof. Yes, because I've got my ring light going on because it's very gray. I wonder if I take it down a notch if it will help. Not much, but maybe a bit. So it starts off with green and, you know, within, you know, an inch and a half, it's moving into, I'm just going to do the colors. An inch and a half, it's moving into magenta, which you've got a couple of inches, and then you've got like probably about 2.5 inches of a dark blue, and then it moves into a pink. And because the colors are changing that quickly, that's why you get, even though there's only a few stitches going on, whoops, even though you've only got a few stitches going on here, why you get a decent amount of variegation in that word joy. Now, when I was so a little tiny bit of fussy cutting, as in I took it off of the skein, looked at the two opposite ends and went, which end do I like better? And I literally pulled off one strand, because again, I'm doing this on 40 count white Verdal over 2 threads with one strand of fiber. So I didn't need like a huge long piece, and so I just chose one end and went, that's the color variation I like best out of the 2 ends. Pulled off my one strand, stitched my word joy, and went, oh yeah, that's fantastic. So if you're looking for variegation, right, it's the amount of space between where those color changes are. Like I've got some hanks of silk from Silks for You where there's a decent amount of length between the different colors, which means it's going to take longer for you to see those variegations, and those colors will stitch up in chunks before you see that variegation. Whereas here, because, you know, the distance between the color variations is like, you know, sub 3 inches, you know, that's why you get green and a little bit of yellow and magenta and pink and blue all happening within the few stitches that it takes to stitch the word joy, right? Which is, I think, in totality, I'm going to call it maybe 30 stitches in all. So if you're looking at variegateds and you're trying to figure out how fast that's going to move, it's that distance between is how fast the color is going to change. And again, that's why I think my Bethlehem was a really good choice for restitching the word joy, because it's highly variegated and the distance between those color variations is quite small. Anyway, all to say, I restitched joy, very happy with how it worked out. We're still having that problem going. Too many things on too many sides. Okay. I was going to say, let's talk about sampler stitches, and we're going to leave that for just a bit more. So I had, that's not, yes. No, that's for something else. There it is. Okay. So I had a new start this week. And yes, I should have taken it out of the bag. But it, of course, gives rise to the topic for this week. So it is clearly a chart from Northern Expressions Needlework, another fantastic Canadian designer. And I am working on Celtic Snow. So that's what that looks like. I want to say that this is a copyright of about 2013, but I can't necessarily see it right off the top of my head. So, you know, not too bad. Hey, less than 10 years before I start on the project. That's pretty good for me. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I feel like I've made really good progress on this week. So I did a center start as I usually do, because I have weird idiosyncratic things that my piece needs to be centered on the fabric I'm stitching on. As always, because this particular chart is fairly symmetrical, it's mandala style. As always, I have stitched in little arrows on either side of my piece. I know different people do different things. Some people like literally at the top of their fabric, you know, write in pen, top. I mean, it's in the margin. It doesn't make a difference. Some people, I've heard cut off like a corner on the top because it just indicates the corner. For me, the problem, because I tend to be such a center starter, if I write it at the top, that's not readily visible for me. If I cut off a top corner, that's not readily visible for me. If I put my little arrows sort of effectively in the center on the sides, it's usually I'm working around and it's not that far for me to get back to, so I know which way I'm going. So that's why I choose the way that I choose. I am stitching this on 28 count Midnight Tryst Jobelan by Fabrics by Stephanie. Now, Midnight Tryst is the called for fabric for this chart. Brace yourself. I'm using the called for fabric. But, okay, I'm using the called for color. They stitched the model, for this on 36 count linen. And I sent Janice from Traditional Stitches. I'm pretty sure it was the first year that Fabrics by Stephanie was going to Nashville Needlework Market. So I think the timing of the start of this is fantastic because it's as we're coming up to the first Nashville Needlework Market since the pandemic and all the shutdowns occurred. The last one occurred just before we all entered into lockdown periods. Anyway, this was a memorable one for me because I saw it, and I talked to Janice and I said, when you're going down, can you go and can you see? Because I prefer an even weave. If she came back and she said, your best bet is to do it on the linen, I would have accepted that. But I sent her down with a request to go chat with Stephanie and see what my best option was, and she was amazing and awesome. She actually reached out to Stephanie before she even went down and said, look, I've got this customer. This is what she wants to do. She's looking for fabric. She would prefer it to be on an even weave, blah, 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 blah. Had a little conversation with her. And when Janice arrived at Nashville, Stephanie had dyed the 28 count Jobelan in the Midnight Tryst way and said, like, if she's looking for an even weave, this is her best bet. And I went, awesome, fantastic. It makes a difference in the size. So if you were to do it on 36 count over 2, it would work out to be 11 3/4 inches square. I, of course, have moved it up to technically 28 count. So according to the math on this, 28 count makes it 15 by 15. So that's just over 3 inches bigger in both directions. However, I did do a little bit of a count on this because when you hand dye fabric, you can get some shrinkage. So this has shrunk down to, it's effectively a 30 count through the dyeing process, which means my expectation is at the end of the day that this is going to end up working out to be about 14 inches square. And the answer is I don't care because I think it looks awesome and the color is most important. And for me, because I could get a color that was good on a fabric type I like. That's the perfect answer for me. So, you know, again, if Janice had gotten down there, and I always send her down when I send her things like, you know me well enough, you've known me long enough, you've seen the ridiculous things that I buy, you know me well enough, you'll know what to do. That if she got down there and she saw the 36 count linen and she went, that's the better option, she would have come back with 36 count linen for me and would have said, Judy, you're going to need to suck it up if this is the effect you're going for. But the answer is there was a 28 count Jobelan that, as far as I'm concerned, looks fantastic. The 28 count Jobelan is also the same fabric that I'm using for the Nora Corbett Fairy Winter Dream. So yes, I bought a very large, okay, Janice brought back a large piece, which I told her I was totally fine with. She told me I didn't have to buy the whole thing, and the answer was I'm taking all of it. And it all came home with me. I'm also going, I might need to order some more because, you know, now I really feel like I'm starting to run out now. But anyway, so 28 count Midnight Tryst Jobelan, Fabrics by Stephanie. It's the called for color for this chart, not necessarily the same fabric that the model was stitched on. Part 2, that's also going to come as a shock, except that I think I knocked it off. I am using all of the called for colors. I hope you're all sitting down for this because, you know, this is not a typical sentence for me. So the called for colors are Dinky Dyes, which I've got. Yes, I'm a newbie at this. I haven't used all of the colors yet, but I've made a good stab. I think there's 2 colors I haven't used yet. But, you know, there's the called for colors. I think it's stitching up fantastically. The other interesting thing for me as I was working on this week is I do feel like this is stitching up reasonably quickly, which I thought was interesting because if you all think back to when I was working on the Ink Circles Bee's Knees, I felt like that stitched up much slower. I think it's because I was having to figure out my path. I think the easy thing for me is when you're stitching these particular motifs, as far as I'm concerned, start wherever you want to start, but there's a very clear path around them. So I didn't have to make any decisions about where I was going with my floss or making, you know, any of those things that I was contemplating when I was working on the Ink Circles one. I just pulled the threads off and started stitching, and off I went and just followed my path. That's literally how I stitched it, so that, you know, like as I came down here, I would stitch around the corner, do one side, all this kind of stuff. That is exactly how I stitched it. So I'm very happy. I think this is a great start. This is going away for a while. I don't know exactly when it's coming back out, but I'm thrilled that it started. I think I've made fantastic progress on it. The other thing about this particular one is even though they stitched their model on 36 count, they did put notes in the chart that if you were stitching it like using 2 threads over 2 on 28 or 32 count, they did tell you if you needed to increase the number of skeins of the Dinky Dyes, because again, over-dyed things, best to buy them all at one time as opposed to, as I've experienced, run completely out and then discover it's hard to find something that goes with that. So they did have notes in here about if you were doing it using 2 threads over 28 or 32 count, what you needed to change. So I was all good on that front. I will say I had a good read of my chart on this one, and it really does, I'm not anywhere close to doing this because my plan on this is to finish all of the cross stitches, and then there's a whole bunch of Smyrna variations that go in here, right? So there's a Smyrna that goes in the center of these snowflakes and in here, and like, Smyrna Variation 1, Smyrna Variation 2, Smyrna Variation 3, Smyrna Variation 4. Great stitch diagrams, I'm not concerned, but I'm going to do all the Smyrnas together at one time just because, you know, once I go, okay, I'm doing Smyrna Variation 1, even if it's in different colors, I'm just going to do them all at one go. So I need to have all of the cross stitching done. So I need to finish this main motif, these 4 diamonds here. I need to work on these outer corners and then this big border that goes around the whole thing. This inner border is actually a raised stitch, and again, this is why it pays to read your chart. Make sure you've read it. Actually, you've done a really good read before you start things, because I think if I had not read carefully, I would have been tempted to start working on this border so that I could sort of, you know, get to sort of the outsides and start working on it. This is a heavily beaded piece. So there's 1,446 beads that need to be put on this. Now I'm going to do the beads last, but the reason why that's important is because she has a note in this chart that says she found it easiest to attach all of the beads that go in this border, and there's a lot of them because there's a bead in between. So this is actually a raised stitch, hard to tell on the picture, I get that. But there's raised stitches and there's a bead between every single raised stitch here. So a lot of beads go into here, and she's got this fantastic note that says she found it easiest to get the beads in first and then do the raised stitches, which says to me she probably started off saying, I'm going to do the raised stitches, and then put the beads in and went, oh my goodness, this is really painful and not working out the way that I thought, which is why there's a really fantastic note saying, I would recommend that you do the beads first and then put the raised stitches in. So made a note of that. And, you know, as I looked at it, I can see why that would work out the best way. So again, so my whole plan is I've got to get the cross stitches done first. Then I'm going to do all of the Smyrna variations that she's got built into this. And then I'm going to start beading my way, which will include the raised stitches. Anyway, thrilled with how it's looking. I will say this is also another example of, okay, I'm sort of bragging that I did the right thing. Again, so this calls for 3 different colors of delicate beads and Swarovski crystal bicones. Now, and I will say I totally fluked into this. I didn't buy this at the same time I bought the Dinky Dyes, but I happened to fluke onto this. This was through Northern Expressions Needlework's Etsy site. She actually had the bead pack for this. So I'm just trying to get them all sorted out. So 3 different colors of delicas, and these are my Swarovski bicones. Now, if you go onto the Northern Expressions Needlework Etsy site now, I don't think she has any bead packs. Welcome to supply chain issues, you know, etc., etc. Anyway, I remember being on Etsy and like fluking into the fact that these bead packs were available on her Etsy site, and I'm thrilled that I got them. So again, my recommendation to you is when you see the specialty things, buy the specialty things, because you just never know. Now, if I were having to kit this up now on my own, I'm not worried about my ability to get the delicate beads. And in fact, even if when she was kitting this up, if I don't have enough of any one of the 3 delicate beads, I'm not concerned. I know where to go to get the delicas, and I'm going to be fine. The Swarovski ones, again, because Swarovski's changing some of their things these days. Anyway, a little bit more concerning, but I'm totally fine at the moment because I've got mine. I think that she's working on trying to make sure that she's, if, you know, with Swarovski changing things, I think she, Nicole from Northern Expression Needleworks is kind of working through what some substitutions are. And even on the chart, they give you Mill Hill options, because again, depending on where you are, what you've got available, the called for are delicas. She does give you Mill Hill substitutions. She's got some commentary about the substitutions, things to consider. And even for the Swarovski crystal, she does have some Mill Hill treasures, although the called for Swarovskis are 3mm bicones. The Mill Hill treasures that she's got as a substitute are 4mm. So again, if you were, you know, if you were trying to do it on 40 count, that's where you go, like the Mill Hill substitution may not work. If you're down in 28 count land like me, it's going to be no problem. And again, largely on this particular chart, you know, even though it was designed and model stitched on 36 count, I'm not particularly worried about my beads. The fact that I've taken it down to a 28 count Jobelan, because they're really sort of going around the outside of, you know, they're filling in a fairly large empty space, or around the points of the snowflake or all that kind of stuff. It's, I've looked at it and I went, mine are totally fine. They're going to work out perfectly. But just note to self, I'm really glad I bought the bead pack when I saw it. And again, this wasn't offered through any of my local needlework shops or any of the online shops that I saw. I totally fluked into it. I got it off of Nicole's Etsy shop, the Etsy shop for Northern Expressions Needlework itself. As I say, if I put that like that, I'm going to lose it for sure. I just know it. Into the bag. Into the bag. All right. One last time. I think it's looking fantastic. I'm very happy with it. Northern Expressions Needlework, Celtic Snow. All right. The other thing that I worked on this week, so I briefly talked about this last week, so I did have an opportunity to go visit my friend so I could have a really good chat about sampler of stitches. And because I can't, I'm totally going to name drop. It was Jeanette Douglas. So I did manage to go over see Jeanette. It's because she's doing really well on getting now that feels like she's got a good handle on Nashville. That's, you know, it was a better time this week, which is totally fine. So I dutifully went over there and I took 5 pieces of fabric over with me. So more than I showed you, because, you know, variety is the spice of life and it's always better to give people more options than less. And so it was really great. We hauled out, I took over my thread palette and said, I'm happy with the colors that I've chosen. As far as I'm concerned, I wasn't necessarily wanting to change my thread palette because I felt, even from what I had already stitched, that I was happy with those color choices. And again, if you are new, Sampler of Stitches is by the Drawn Thread. It is a series of 9 charts, 1, 2, 3, etc. to 9, that I'm doing as a stitch along, hosted by the Stitchin' Mommy. Anyway, fantastic. It's my first sal that I'm actively participating in. Woohoo! And so we had a really great chat, looked at things, had a really great discussion, and I'm changing my fabric is really where it comes out to. So I started again. So I started on Friday night. So again, as far as I'm concerned, I am not behind on this sal. This is where I was before. This is the version on 32 count pearl gray linen. Which again, lots of fantastic positive comments from all of you that you thought it was looking great, and that was really nice, and thank you for your support. But as somebody put in the comments last week, and as a friend of mine said to me, you've been dithering about this for 2 weeks. That says to me that you are not happy and that you should probably change it. Sorry, big hair. Anyway, so I have changed it. And I've restarted this. Be nice if I got them all together. There we go. Now, as I'm looking at this in the camera, this looks white. This is not white in real life. This is the 32 count Silvery Moon Lugana by Zweigart. And as I said last week, I had 2 pieces of it. And again, had a fantastic discussion with Jeanette. I know, still behaving like a newbie. Good grief. I took both pieces of Silvery Moon Lugana over with me, and she looked at them and she went, yeah, they look different. And I said, I know, they look different. They're called the same thing. They're both from Zweigart. They've got the Zweigart orange stripe in the selvage. Like, they're both Zweigart. They're both called Silvery Moon, but welcome to dyes and over time and things. And somebody somebody on Instagram did a fantastic post about, it might have been Color and Cotton, that said, look, we do our best to keep everything the same, but if the water processing plant in the city where they live has changed the chemicals that they're using to treat the water on any given day for whatever reason, the water that they're pulling out to do their dyeing with, it changes how the dyes take. If the humidity is different, if the humidity one day is 50% and the humidity another day is 30%, it changes how the dye takes. If even though your base fabric is the same, technically as it's being woven, like, surprise, surprise, not every strand is exactly the same, and some batches just dye differently. So I think it's Color and Cotton. They did it. It was a fantastic post, and I was like going, those are like, hadn't even thought about the chemicals in the water treatment plant as to where you're getting your water from. All of those things change, which is why it makes it so difficult to say, particularly when you're doing hand dyed, but even for like the larger manufacturers like Zweigart, when they're dyeing, it's not the same. Anyway, so I've ended up changing my fabric. I am now doing it on 32 count Silvery Moon Lugana by Zweigart. I like it much better. And again, when I was talking to Jeanette about it, her answer was, I think you like it better because it's brighter. And I think that is the answer. And as much as I think this is fine and the contrast is fine, I'm going to be happier with this. So I'm back to Silvery Moon. So I've restarted it again. The thread palette, the thread colors are exactly the same. But as you can see, I'm stitching it in a different way because it's round 2. And I started at the top and went, did blue here, did some blue here, and went, well, then I did this, and I went, well, then there's more blue, so I started working on this, but then I wanted to get the basket in, and because I started, anyway, it's sort of color completion, kind of, anyway, so my plan for tonight, because again, we're going to be back on Sunday night stitching, so I'm a little behind, so by today, I'm trying to do it in my head. By today, I think I should be up to date, which I'm clearly not at. But again, I got all of this accomplished on my Friday evening stitching. I didn't work on it on Saturday. I worked on it on Friday so that I had something to show. And so I think, again, a good Sunday night, I might work on this on Monday just to get it caught up. But again, even though I'm sort of restarting this in February, February 18th to be precise is when I'm restarting my sampler of stitches. It's not gonna take a lot of stitching to get it caught up to where it should be. Again, so I'm not gonna rip this out. So if you've got thoughts on how what I should be doing with my remnant, let me know in the comment section down below. That'd be great to hear. But I've restarted this on Silvery Moon, and I think I'm going to be much happier with it. So there's where I'm at on that one. And that's all the stitching I did this week. Yeah, there's a lot of it on the Celtic Snow because it was going so well. All right. Let's talk about haul. It's someone last week who said, I think you forgot the haul portion. And the answer is I did not forget the haul portion. I showed you exactly what I bought that week, which was absolutely nothing. Oh yeah, one other thing on this. My pearl cotton, I may need to change my pearl cotton on here, so we'll see how that works out. Check back next week because I'll have a better idea of where I'm at that point in time. But again, Jeanette, actually it was interesting, Jeanette said, even for this one, she said, before you finish it off is whatever's going to do. She actually said, I think you should take the pearl cotton that you chose. And she said, I totally understand why you chose what you chose. Come back in and stitch it with white. I think you'll be happier. So that's also factoring into, I may rip this out and stitch it with a pearl cotton white and see if she was right before I finish it off as whatever I'm going to finish it off as, because as you all know, I'm really awesome at finishing stuff. Anyway, okay, back to haul. So I didn't forget haul last week. I didn't have anything to show for haul. I don't have anything to show for haul this week either. There are a couple of orders that are outstanding that at some point they're going to get shipped, and when they arrive, we'll talk about them when they arrive. I'm not surprised at the timelines for what's being shipped. It's all totally fine. It's fine with me. And when I placed those orders, I knew about the time delays, and I'm all fine with that. Nashville Needlework. So part of the reason why I haven't been doing a ton of shopping is, of course, Nashville's coming. Nashville's coming. For all of the designers who watch my YouTube channel, which I don't think is really any of them, man, I'm so, like, I'm done with the sneak peeks. Just show me your products so I can make my decisions. And I have to say, so far, I'm being pretty well behaved. There were a couple of people, some designers who were taunting some things, which I went, this could turn into a huge downfall for me. But so far, I think I'm doing well. At this particular moment in time, I'm at a total of 5 charts, which I feel is not bad. Stay tuned. I mean, again, there's a lot of people who've been taunting their reveals and stuff like that. So anyway, whatever. My answer is, dear designers, just get your stuff out there so we can all make our decisions, so we can get our pre-orders in with our LNSs so that they can go down and shop efficiently and effectively. Anyway, I'll be fine. It's not like I don't have, you know, stuff from, what, 10 years ago left to stitch? Anyway, never mind that. So that is the whole portion of this particular program. I don't have anything to show. Plans. So my rotation that I'm still going with in February is that this is a week where I will be working on a whip or whips or whatever, something that is art. So the plan is no new starts this week. This is a whip week for me. But I totally reserve the right to who knows what whip that's going to be. And how many whips I work on this week, again, is also up for me to decide. So check back next week and see what I've done. I will caution you that my rotation plans, which, again, I feel like for January and February, it actually has been working out fairly well for me. The plan for March is different, and we'll talk about that when we get into March. But for right now, we're sticking with the version of the rotation that I've been working on so far this year. So this is a whip week for me, and what exactly those whips are is up for debate. That's where the stitch what you want, when you want effect comes into play for me. And whether it's one whip for the whole week or a different whip every day, that's my choice. And even as I sit here today going, I mean, I know what I'm stitching on Sunday because I'm working on my sampler of stitches. As I said, I might carry sampler of stitches onto Monday just so I can do a little bit of catch up on that. And after that, who knows? I actually don't have any concrete plans as to which of my whips I'm going to work on. All right. I'm looking around. Okay. This is why I had the bag. So one of the things that I forgot to talk about when I was talking about that biscornu that I'm working on is one of the things that I have been contemplating building for myself is, so we all know that I've got the DMC color card. I've got an older version of an anchor color card. It's not up to date. I'm not planning on updating it. I would love to get myself a Auvert Soie, the Soie d'Alger color card, but they're really expensive, so that's not likely to happen. Anyway, whatever. But what I saw somebody else doing is that they were working on building themselves a fabric swatch library, which I thought was awesome. Also comes with caveats, you know, again, look at the 32 count Silvery Moon Lugana. Like, it might give you the gist. It's not necessarily going to hold up over time that it's going to be perfect matches all the time. But I had a moment going, I was thinking that I would start building myself a fabric swatch library. And really that just means sort of taking a small piece of the leftover as I've, you know, cut the fabric up for a project, attaching it to, straight up stapling it to a recipe card, and then just making a note of the count, the manufacturer, the name of the fabric. And then my secret one is on the back is actually trying to keep track of the types of projects that I've used it on. So for example, like the Midnight Tryst Jobelan, that I've used it for Fairy Winter Dream, and that I've used it for Celtic Snow. I don't have a swatch of it yet because the way I cut my fabric up, it worked out perfectly. But anyway, it's coming up because when I was cutting out the fabric for the biscornu that I started back in January, this is the piece of fabric from what I cut off that I had left. And I went, okay, this is great. Now this is more than I need to do a fabric swatch, but I looked at it and went, okay, that's enough that you could do a fabric swatch, just cut off what you want, and you could start your swatch library. That's a great thing for you to be working on and adding to your library for 2022 is your fabric swatches. So that's fine. This piece of fabric came downstairs with me, and etc., etc. Well, you know, then it was hanging out on the ironing table as, you know, fabric remnants do. I was looking at it and I went, oh, look at that. So then I hauled out another bag, this bag. This is the bag that has the Berry Crush Lady Dot Creates Velveteen in it, which may not mean anything for some of you, but this is the bag that also holds my piece ornament. This is from an older version. So it originally came out in a Just Cross Stitch Ornament issue. I don't remember the year. It then got released by the designer as a separate one. This is by M Designs. See, it says piece. I think every time I do this, I do it the wrong way because I'm looking at it reversing the camera. I think this is the way it reads piece for you. Let's hold that. Piece. Yes, this is piece for you. The mirror image is piece up here, which is why I always show it wrong. This is the piece tree. I think this is done with Thread Gatherer, silken colors in the Burgundy, but I will confirm that, and I will put that in the notes below if you're looking for the color, with a Mill Hill treasure at the top, beads in it. Done 1/1 on 32 count opalescent, white opalescent linen. why I struggle with the name of that fabric is unknown to me. This is my 17th time struggling with it. So the problem is I had this remnant sitting on the ironing table waiting for me to start my swatch library, and I looked at it, I went, seriously, I'll bet you that's the right size for another one of those tree ornaments. Look at that. I'm saying I could do another ornament on here. So it's not going to start my fabric swatch. I am holding this in reserve. I need to go back into my M Designs. Now, does it have to be this one? No. Could I go into any just cross stitch and pick out something else? But the answer is, I'm looking at this saying, if I just did another M Designs tree ornament, and we all know that I've got a plethora of them, use the same in the Burgundy, because that's clearly in stash, and there's more than enough of this Berry Crush velveteen to back 2 ornaments. So I'm adding this into the list of things, and again, when exactly that's going to get done is unknown. So one of my tasks for myself this week, now that I've remembered to talk about it on my Flosstube channel, is to go back into my stash, into the M Designs, and pick what my next tree ornament is going to be, find the Burgundy thread, put it back into the bag, and throw it into the bin of 2022 projects to get started. So I still don't have a start on my fabric library swatch cards, because I'm going to take this swatch and I'm going to make another ornament. Yeah, I literally came downstairs and went, like, it's the same one. You're good to go. Like, do another one. Anyway, so that's the plan for that. All right, and with that, let's get into the topic. So as usual, when I'm starting new projects from designers that I haven't stitched on before, I'm sort of working through some of the charts of that particular designer that I have in my stash. And I will say, when I was working on my 2022 plan, one of the things that I was mindful of was trying to start projects from designers that were different than the ones that I had started in 2021, so that I could reach into my stash and start working on other things, which, let's all acknowledge, I've got some stash. So Northern Expressions Needlework, and again, this is another Canadian designer, so as a very patriotic Canadian, I'm always happy to show the designs of Canadian designers. So she is, well, my things say Port Dover. For some reason, I feel like she moved somewhere along the line, but she's still in Canada. So here comes another Canadian designer. Okay, the first series I'm going to show are all from a series that she did. Now, they're not in the order that they were released in. They're just sort of the order they came out of the box. So she did a series of charts called Shades of. It's a series of 12 charts. They're all different colors. So here's the ones that I have in my collection. So this is called Shades of Blue. So yes, all very mandala type designs. They're not necessarily the smallest of designs. Let's be clear about that. So this is the stitch count on this. Yeah, Shades of Blue, 249 by 249. So again, not the smallest of designs. If you're doing it on 40 count, it's only 12.5 by 12.5. This one, again, the sample was stitched using Dinky Dyes, 3 different colors of Dinky Dyes. There are DMC equivalents provided for this. And we're going to talk about this in a bit once I get through my collection. So this is Shades of Indigo. And I'm holding them up close so that you can actually sort of look and see the design of the chart. And again, there's a specific reason for that. And as always, the cover photos aren't necessarily the best. This is shades of Plum. Shades of Purple. Shades of Red. Shades of Rose. Shades of Turquoise. Yeah, I've got quite a few of them. I haven't started any of them. And shades of Wine. So I will say, as I said, I don't have all 12 of them. I think I'm missing green, olive, gold, orange, something like that. If you look, again, if you go to the Northern Expressions Needlework Etsy site, you can buy them as a pack for all of them, etc., etc. But the reason why I was saying pay attention to the designs on them is, let's say you're the person who goes like, there's no way I'm going to do a whole bunch of those. Thanks very much, Judy. That's not me. The thing to note, particularly on this series, is find the one where you like the design the best and don't care so much about the color. So let's pretend, let's go back to purple, wherever it went. There we go. Let's pick on purple. So here's shades of purple. And let's say you're someone who says, I hate purple. Love the design, love the angles, love, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Whatever appeals to you in this particular design, but I hate purple. The really awesome thing about the Shades of series is that if you're uncomfortable about making those color choices, she's already given you 12 palettes, both a Dinky Dye's version as well as a DMC conversion. And if you're comfortable changing, just make it whatever you want. But if you looked at this and said, but my favorite color is blue, all you have to do is then go look at the shades of blue and buy the palette for that and use it on this design. Because she's already curated, technically, 12 combinations. And I would say most of these designs call for a palette of 3 colors. Some of them are only 2, like Shades of Turquoise is only 2 colors. But I would say most of them are 3 colors, which gives you that flexibility where you can just sort of say, pick the palettes and swap them out. Now, when I was buying these, I will have to say, like, I did look at shades of gold, and I am someone who can look at it and say, like, I would just have to fix the colors. But the answer is I didn't get shades of gold and I didn't get shades of orange because the actual design didn't necessarily appeal to me, even if I did change the color palette. Shades of green is still in the possibility, but that's where I started to behave myself in my purchasing and went, sorry, how many shades of charts have you got going on in your collection and you have yet to stitch one of them? Maybe you should get going on the ones you already have, and then if you're making, you know, if you're going like gangbusters, then you can break out and buy, you know, the ones that you don't have. So, you know, started to behave a little bit. We're not through the charts yet, but I also wanted to say, now, particularly as these were coming out, I think your LNS or your online needlework shop can still buy the thread packs, but I haven't specifically checked in on that. Certainly when they were coming out, you could buy thread packs. So for example, right here is the thread pack. If I were really smart, I would have put them together. Okay, so technically, so here's Shades of Indigo, which calls for 3 different colors of Dinky Dyes, which again, it may be a little bit hard to tell, but there's the 1, 2, 3. So there's the thread pack that goes with that particular design. Now, I did do ones, yeah. Generally, the thread packs that they've given you are the floss estimates if you're doing it on 40 count. So you need to adjust, and you will see that I've done that. Maybe hang on a minute while I get my act together. Like so here's, oh, that one worked out well. So here's Shades of Plum, and here's the Shades of Plum thread packs. And again, so this one I did well when I pulled them out, because I ended up buying 2 thread packs because I went, I am not expecting that I'm going to be doing it on 40 count over 1. So I bought 2. Now, do I run the risk that 2 is not enough? Possibly. But that's where I started. And again, the other, you know, even as I look at this, again, if I did a center start and started working my way out concentrically, if I ended up having to buy more and it wasn't necessarily a good match, right? If I did all of this interior part here and ran out and I bought new skeins and they weren't perfect matches, it gives me more flexibility that, you know, as I work on new elements, as I go out from a mandala type design, if I've got some of those color issues, it makes it a little bit easier, right? So if the solid lines around this box end up being different than the solid lines, you know, on an interior box are not identical, it probably makes it a little bit easier if I'm having some of those color consistency issues. But I did try, whether I've got them all down here or not, that's a different kettle of fish. I did try when I was getting them to get two packets. So again, it's more expensive, and I got the Dinky Dye silk. I did try to get 2 packets because I knew that I wasn't going to be doing it on 40 count, because that's just not my jam. Okay. This is the Shades of Turquoise. This is the Shades of Rose. Again, 3 colors. And Shades of Purple. And again, so if this is not your, you know, if you like the Shades of Purple one, but you go, I would really rather do it in using the colors of Shades of Plum. 3 colors, swap them out, right? So again, if you're nervous about making those changes, if nothing else, it gives you a starting palette that you can play with. And again, even if you look at if you go, I want to do Shades of Purple, but I want to do it in blue, and I called out the Shades of Blue palette, and those still aren't quite, it gives you something to start with if you're trying to make those changes. All right. That's my Shades of collection. All right. She's got other ones as well. So this is the Twisted Band Sampler. Stitchin' Mommy is working on this. She posted on Instagram, so I know she worked on this week. On this one, there's 2 different versions of this particular design. The version that I have is the specialty stitch version, because we all know specialty stitches don't frighten me and I enjoy doing them. If you are not a specialty stitch version, there is a version of this chart that is entirely done in cross stitches. So if you're the person who says, I really love the design, why did they have to put specialty stitches in? Don't you worry, there's a version of this for you too. So you can get this chart where it is entirely done in cross stitches. When you're buying it, just make sure that you're very careful. So whether you're ordering it from an LNS, make sure you're very clear if you want the cross stitch only, or even if you're wanting the specialty stitch, that you're very clear in your ordering process that you are getting the one that you want, whether it's the specialty stitch version or the cross stitch version. If you are, again, she's got an Etsy site, and again, I'm not good. I did check to see if you can get the paper patterns off of the Etsy site or not. For sure, the thing that I look at on the Etsy site is that if you are an international shopper like me, if you are wanting these, you can get these charts as PDF downloads from Etsy as well. So I know that I've got some people who watch me from overseas. So again, if you're wanting to support a Canadian designer and you like these ones, you can go onto Etsy and you can purchase them as a PDF download, and then you don't have to worry about any of the shipping costs. So that's Twisted Band Sampler. This one is the Twisted Rainbow Sampler, and again, my recollection is that there's two versions of this as well. The difference is that it's going in a different direction. Now, it's shown on black. You don't have to do it on black. I will make a note. It didn't come down with me. Thread pickers in England came up with a different palette for this. It's a much more pastel palette. I bought that for a friend of mine as a gift. And certainly if she got one, then I needed to get one too. Anyway, so I've got that same palette. So if you're looking, again, if you're looking for a different palette for this, if you're like, it's too bright, it's too colorful, it's too whatever it is, Thread Pickers did a palette. It's more pastel. I will see if she's got those packets still available. And if it is still available, I'll put the link to that in the notes below as well. My funny story about this is I had a stitching friend where she really loved these, but she's like, my brain is not going to do well with a pattern on a diagonal. She's like, so do you think if I got the pattern I could like straighten it out and then just make it go across like this? And we went, we consistently as a group of stitchers and looked at her and said, like, if you can't follow the pattern because it's going on a diagonal, having you take the diagonal part, the pattern, and try to straighten it out into lines is probably not going to work out well for you either. Anyway, it was just a funny story for me. I always laugh going, like, do you think I could straighten that out? And we all went, no, not so much for you. And again, so, you know, not surprisingly with this, there's a lot more colors in this. There's a thread on this particular one. There's a Thread Pickers color set, there's a Dinky Dye's color set, and there's a DMC conversion as well. Ooh, this one's interesting. I didn't even check this one. So originally this was an Auvert Soie color palette with a DMC conversion available. I have not kitted this one up. I'm working on my first one though. It's getting good progress on that one. She also has a series of flowers, and again, so all in mandala style. So if mandala styles aren't necessarily your thing, this isn't necessarily going to appeal to you, but this is the iris one. I think she's got iris, daisy, rose, like in my head I'm going, there's a series of flower-based mandalas as well. I've got the iris one. And because she is a good Canadian designer and she's patriotic, and I love that, she's got Shades of Canada. And I've got my thread pack. What did she do this on? So she did Shades of Canada, again in celebration of Canada's 150th birthday, which occurred in 2017. So, I mean, come on, I've got a good 5 more years before I've got a shot at starting this. With lots of sparkle and bling. Ooh, careful, careful. I can tell you right now, I don't have the bead pack for this one, which I'm now going, maybe I need to work on that. So the 2 colors, floss estimates are for 32 count fabric stitching over 2, which is why I had them up going like, how do I only have 1 thread pack? I only have 1 thread pack because according to this, I only needed 1 thread pack. On 32 count fabric, which you know is my jam. Does call for a cry neck. But I'm now looking at going, maybe I should do something about the beads. Something to look into. Anyway. Love that. I'm really glad no, I'm going to have to pick it up. It's got too many front covers out of their plastic bags. Yeah, I liked when we were having our 150th birthday and watching the designers, the Canadian designers come up with their commemorative pieces, and I think I've got quite a few of them. Now, she also did Maple Leaf, which is the Canadian flag. Again, so this has got specialty stitches and stuff like that. But it's, of course, got beads and things and all that kind of stuff. It's a blinged up Canadian flag. Yeah, I don't know when. Anyway. Again, this one hasn't been started, but I love it. Love it, love it. Actually, I just sat here and went like, you know, remember how I talked about, I said I would really like to do a red wall, but it's not really me, because I remember I'd seen somebody and they had done their red sampler wall and I thought it looked great, and then I had to say to myself, but you're never really going to do that because you're not going to do a whole bunch of samplers in red. I'm now looking at this going, I think I could do a red wall, but it could be a combination of red samplers plus my Canadian leaf, you know, designs and mandalas, and I'm going, maybe I can do a red wall. Ooh. It might actually look really interesting. I need to think about that now. Now, the funny thing is, I did get the thread pack for this, and I know I'm pretty sure I only got 1, which means I probably don't have enough of this. But again, it's not that bad. You know, your white silk is going to be white silk. That's not so bad. It just means I need to be careful if I got, when I got another... I think I'd have some skills with this. Heartthrob. Or I could, well, I've already invested in one of these. I should probably get some more. So note to self, add Dinky Dye's Heartthrob to the add to stash. I should check my stash and see if I've got more in those and see if I can't, see how I'm doing on that. So I'll note to self, check on that. See if I can't report back next week on how I do on that. And now that I'm freaking out, not freaking out, being cognizant. See, on this one, I think the reason why I wasn't so worried, again, this Maple Leaf one, yes, just needs Delica beads, which I'm not, again, Delicas don't worry me because I know how to get those. It's not a small number of beads. There's, I'm going to go just over 1,700 beads that go on this. So if you don't like beading, you're not going to like those. Again, check when you're ordering, check your supplies to make sure you know. And careful when you're ordering online, because some shops are fantastic about saying, you know, we can give you the threads, but it calls for beads and we don't have those. Some shops, like, I don't want to point fingers, but I know that there are some shops where they are not necessarily as good about that. So worst case scenario, again, because this is Northern Expressions Needlework and they've got an online Etsy shop, on her Etsy shop, I'm pretty sure she's very good about putting in the supplies needed, so you can always check on there. Okay, the last one, you're going to have a good chuckle at. So this is Esther's Waves. And if you're looking at that online, as much as, you know, the light's blowing it out a little bit and looking at it going like, wow, that's not necessarily the color palette I thought for you. And it does have a very, as much as the light's blowing it out, it's a very fall color palette. You know, chestnut, terracotta, red dust, pumpkin spice, outback, Aussie gold, you know. And we all know, you know, that's not necessarily the Judy set of colors. And so here's what I did. I looked at that and went, yep, she's absolutely correct. Those are not my colors. But there's 11 colors that are called for in this design. And so here's what I did. I went to, I didn't necessarily put these things together originally. Northern Expressions has another design that's called Peacock something. Peacock Mandala, Peacock something, Peacock, I don't know, Peacock something. Again, the design didn't necessarily appeal to me. A lot of the colors appealed to me, but not all of them. And the called for colors in that design were Fiberlicious silks, which is what sent me to the Fiberlicious site. You know, when you see it, I went and had a look and went, whatever. But here's what happened is Fiberlicious has this thread pack. And while I was in there perusing the site for the other design, it's still going. Even then, I was like, it wasn't for that design. It was for Esther's Waves. I was on the Fiberlicious website, and they have this, they had at the time, so again, haven't checked today whether this is available. This is their Peacock Fantasy thread pack. And it may be hard to tell on camera. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 11 colors in there. Okay, this is what got me all excited when I bought this. It's like, there's 11 colors. It's a thread palette. Yeah, some of them are close, and that's totally fine. There's going to be white space between some of these bands and all that kind of stuff. There's a thread palette. Here it is. And so I very graciously, this one I did things with, but I got 2 of them just to make sure that I had enough. So I ordered 2 of these packs. So my plan is, even though this is what the design looks like, I am planning on doing it in these colors. Now, that only solves part of the problem. So there are 11 colors of Delica beads that go with this design. So again, this is another incredibly bead intensive design. I've seen people stitching on it and it looks amazing once I adjust in my head for the colors and make it my own. But even in the called for, like, it's an amazing design. It's got tons of beads, specialty stitches galore, all that kind of stuff. But what I did end up getting, because, you know, I'm changing everything. Now, Delicas, there's tons of colors and all that kind of stuff. But as with everything in life, I can't say that the stores that I have necessarily have all of them. And so what I got, this is also at the same time that I was working on, when I got the bead pack for Celtic Snow, is that there was, for that Peacock, whatever, mandala something, that Peacock mandala also has a ton of beads. And so I bought the bead pack for that one and went, if nothing else, it's going to give me a really great starting point. Now, it may not be perfect, but I figured it was going to be awfully close. So here we go. So first of all, clearly the yellows, and again, see, it was close, but not quite. It wasn't too bad, but you know, yellow is not me. So yeah, I ordered the thread pack. It's got like these 3 sets of yellow beads, which are not me, but it doesn't mean I can't use them for something else at some point in time. Here we get into, like, you know, here's, oh, look at the glare, sorry. Right? That, I feel like that bead goes with one of those. I've got this one. Maybe those 2. And yet again, I have lost my dumb board. So let's see how well I do about putting these. I'm going to do a terrible job at this, so just, you know, bear with me. Right, so I've got all these different colors of delicate beads that were originally called for her peacock mandala. Oh, that glare, I'm so sorry. Anyway. Watch this turn into a total disaster. Oh yeah. Right, anyway. But there's purple and a dark blue and a more aqua and all that kind of stuff. So I bought the bead pack for the peacock one. And again, so I only have one set of purple beads, which is fine. But it gives me a color range to start off with. And again, I think it's better in person than it's showing up on camera about how that's going to factor in here. But it gives me a starting point. Now, it's probably not the right number of beads and all those other things that go along with it, but it gave me a starting point as I go to, you know, whenever it is that I start to work on my version of Esther's Waves using my Fiberlicious fiber pack. It gives me a place when I go to start finding those delicate beads, what I'm looking for. And again, I'm not overly concerned about delicate beads, and I'm pretty sure online that there are conversion charts for delicate beads, so I could, because I've got a DMC color card, I could convert these colors to sort of close into the DMC world and then use the DMC to Delica conversion. And again, that's how I'm planning on putting that together. I've got a starting point, and I don't regret, you know, even if I don't end up using all of these and these go into stash, I'm totally fine with that, because other than those 3 packets of yellow, you know, those are my colors. So that's what my plan is for Esther's Waves. Someday when it gets started. But again, the problem is every time I do one of these designer focus things, I look at them and go like, yes, but everything I have in my stash, I want to stitch it. I want to stitch it all. So one upside is, thank heavens, you know, I've bought all of these charts and I still look at them and go, I want to stitch that. So that part's awesome. I just need more stitching time, and anyway, whatever. I need to stitch faster and have every day be longer and not do cooking or cleaning or laundry or work or any of those things. Like, anyway, whatever. So that is what my plan is for Esther's Waves by Northern Expressions Needlework. So it will look quite different. But again, I look at this and go like, oh, I need to start this. But I've started Celtic Snow, and I am trying to do the thing where I want to finish Celtic Snow before I start another Northern Expressions Needlework. Theoretically, that's also a little bit in my plan about trying to make my way through my stash and various designers and all that kind of stuff, is that before I start another one of Northern Expressions, let me finish my first one. And I did start that one because it is my favorite out of all of my ones. Now, the Celtic Snow, that's the winter version of Celtic. She has other Celtic designs. She originally started them off, now they're not called Celtic Spring, Summer, Autumn, whatever. They're called other things, but again, you'll be able to see them on the Northern Expressions Etsy site. But she has those ones. She's got other Celtic things. I want to say she's got like an American flag in there and maybe a British flag, but I don't remember. No big surprise. I'm a Canadian. I bought the Canadian ones and not the ones for other countries. Anyway, I'm a proud Canadian. I only got my flag. But again, not all Canadian. Hey, I will fully acknowledge that there are more American stitchers than there are Canadian stitchers. But I'm always grateful when the Canadian designers look after their Canadian compatriots and give us really fantastic designs. So thank you, Nicole. I'm really glad. And as you can tell, I bought both the Shades of Canada and the Maple Leaf design. I haven't stitched them yet, but I've got them in my stash ready to go. All right. So that's a little bit of a review of Northern Expressions Needlework. I hope you enjoyed that little tour. Go have a visit on the Etsy site, see what else she's got available. Like I say, I've got quite a few of hers and would love to stitch them all. The last thing I'm going to talk about very briefly, because I haven't printed any of them out, is some free charts. I laughed when I was watching Mama Loves You GB from last week on her video because she charted up the cipher for Queen Elizabeth II. It's a free chart. It's on her Instagram account. So I will put her Instagram account in the notes below. You just need to scroll through till you find it and do sort of a screen capture there to get that. So I've done that. And this one, I'm really sorry. I don't remember the name of the designer. I know that I saved it. Somebody's put out a free design of Rosa Parks. This is black. This is American Awareness Month down in the US. So if you're looking for one of those designs, that one's out there. Primitive Hair is the one that did the Harriet Tubman one. Primitive Hair for Nashville Needlework is also putting out and has designed one for Anne Frank. So if you're looking for ones about women who've had a really great impact on history, Primitive Hair has got those two, and there's this Rosa Parks one. So if you want to add those to your collection. The third one that it's on my to-do list, so as this is uploading, processing, and all that kind of stuff, I am planning, I've been seeing the pictures on Instagram, and I can't hold off anymore. Doreen Jones in her Facebook group, and it is a group where you don't have to be a member, so I do have an account on Facebook. I'm not frequently on Facebook. I usually go into Facebook to get the free charts and see, anyway, whatever. I'm more on Instagram than I am on Facebook. But the Doreen Jones Facebook group, she is doing a free stitch along for 2022. I don't know how long it's going. I think it's called Flowers and Bees, but people have stitched enough of it where I'm going like, okay, I need to add the charts to my collection. So I will put a link to the Facebook group down below. I think you're going to have to scroll back through time to download those particular charts, because that's what I have to do because I'm late to the party and not going to be stitching it in time. But there's enough people who've been posting about it where I'm actually really enjoying the design, so I'm adding the design to my collection. All right. And as you know, my line is, if you see a free chart and it appeals to you, download it. So again, part of my homework for tonight for myself, while I'm processing this before I get to stitching on sampler stitches, is download the free charts. I haven't watched it myself. My understanding is that Carolyn Zook has put up a new Flosstube where she's been sort of doing a let's walk through sort of what the Nashville Needlework new releases are. It's on my to-watch list. I haven't done it yet. But as I say, I've been watching a few designers where I'm like, just stop with the sneak peeks. Just put out the stuff so that the shops can put up their designs. Let the shops add your dumb designs so we as the shoppers can put our orders in. Anyway, I'll be fine. As far as I'm concerned, every designer out there should have released all of their full reveals by now so that we can make decisions. as I said, it's the 20th of February. Lots of shops you have to put your orders in by the 25th. Again, the shops have to collect the orders, get them into the designers, so that the designers are bringing the right amount of stuff. You know, again, one of the interesting things about talking with Jeanette is she is an international designer. She's got to cross an international border to get to Nashville. So there's a lot of complications for her, and like the answer is she's had to ship already. She's already had to ship her stuff. So if for some reason she's miscounted her quantities, it's not that she can't get the stuff to the shops, but she's just going to have to ship them separately, which, you know, adds a little bit of a time delay into things. But anyway, when I was over there this week, I was like going, for the love of all things, are pictures up. She doesn't tend to do a lot of sneak peeks, but I'm like going, just put your pictures up already, would you? Let them see the products. She put them up shortly after that. Anyway, she's got nice stuff this year too, so go have a look at those ones. Anyway, I'm really going to wrap this up. This is going to be a big long one. I'm looking at my clock going, we're over 90 minutes already, so it's going to take forever and a day to load. So whenever it gets up, it gets up. But anyway, with that, we're going to wrap it up in a big bow and go, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. I hope you've enjoyed what I've shown you this week. As always, if you've got any comments, questions, topics you'd like me to address, throw them in the notes down below. Happy to do that. And let's stay safe. Let's stay healthy, and let's find some time to do some stitching this week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.